Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Khoj Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The recitation for the day is the 32nd stanza of Jup Pauri, which we proceed to recite as follows. Ik dooji bon lak hoye lakh vees, lakh geda akhiye, ek naam jagdish, et rah pat pauriyan, chadiye hoye ikis, sun galla aakas ki, कीटा आई रीस, नानक नदरी पाइयै, कूड़ी कूड़ै ठीस. This verse has been interpreted in two different ways and has been the source of some confusion. So let us here consider the two divergent translations first before we delve into the possible meaning. The first translation and interpretation looks somewhat as follows. Ik dooji bon lakh hoye lakh vees. If one tongue grew to two, and two tongues then grew into 100,000, and multiply that 20-fold, and each tongue then recites the name of Jagdish, lakh geda akhiya, ek naam Jagdish, Etra pat pavdiyan, chadiye hoye ikis. Now these are the steps of the path to a spiritual union. Climbing them, one attains oneness with the self. Sun galla aakas ki, such is the glory of the state of consciousness. Kita airis, that it inspires the others to reach for the sky. In other words, to imitate. Nanak nadri paiya, kudi kude tees, those blessed by grace will find the path, the rest will wander away. Now this interpretation claims to describe the methodology of what is commonly known as Simran or Nam Japana, where the process begins with a mechanical repetition of a sacred syllable, which in turn triggers a deepening awareness that leads ultimately to the center of one's being. And the spiritual accomplishment of those who have practiced this discipline invariably provokes a desire in those less successful to imitate. But the real thing is always dependent on grace. Now, this is how it's commonly understood. The objection to this reads as follows. It qualifies it by saying, even if I had 100,000 tongues, multiplied 20-fold more, even if each tongue were to chant the name of Jagdish 1,000,000 times, to claim that this is the ladder to union, etra pat pauriyan, is nothing but self-deceptive boasting. Such a claim, this interpretation believes, is like an ant claiming to fly. The right path, it goes on, is a step-by-step illumination of the consciousness that comes about through the light of wisdom received through grace. All else is nonsense. So let's think about the objection, which essentially is rooted in the translation of lakh geda akhiye and jeba. In other words, chanting or recitation of mantras is not part of Sikhi's practice. And indeed, it is correct that Gurbani is quite clear and quite emphatic about the futility of parrot-like recitation. The third Guru, Guru Apardas, Ram Ram sabko kahe, kaya Ram na hoye. Yet at the same time, Gurbani also suggests a constant remembrance of Jagdish. Madho gun govind vicharye, binvant nanak mil sang sadhu dinas rehn chitarye. So how do we resolve this? One possible way is to take a closer look at the first two lines, especially the words jibon and akhiye, and then try to contextualize this passage within Gurbani's framework, overall framework, as well as the context of the previous stanzas of Jup Bani that are building a theme up to this point. It seems to us that the translation of Jibho as the physical tongue and Akhya as recitation, physical recitation, may indeed be the source of confusion. Because we know that Gurbani's entire thrust is the assimilation of divine qualities within the mind. So this stanza could not be recommending a path of continuous chanting with the tongue. That much seems pretty clear. Recall also that in stanza 24, the caution is that mere saying is not sufficient. We also know, for instance, that Gurbani often uses the term rasana, the tongue, for the intellect, for the buddhi, which perhaps is the usage in this verse. Similarly, akhya, literally to say, can imply thought or contemplation. If we view this couplet in this manner, then the lines can be read as constant contemplation of divine virtues. So we would suggest that the reading of the passage should be as follows. Grow the mind through constant reflection and contemplation on divine qualities. In other words, make Gurmat the inner compass by which to guide your life moment by moment. That then is the proper step-by-step practice by which the mind will become receptive to receiving the knowledge of the self. And remember, the practice is a preparation, not a culmination. It requires the grace of the bestower to achieve transcendence or union. Nanak nadri paiya, kudi kudatis. Any suggestion to the contrary is mere boasting. So for success in any endeavor, preparation is of the essence. And in this stanza, Naam Simran appears to be the practice or the preparation for us to be receptive and centered. But the caveat here is very clear, that no amount of training or technology can force grace. Yet practice we must. In other words, we cannot force a conclusion or outcome. The best that we can do is to fashion our minds, to develop skills to traverse through life with the knowledge that we are not the source. We leave you with these thoughts until the next time. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.